Hi friends, Father Kerry Walters here, pastor of Holy Spirit American National Catholic Church. This is another Holy Spirit moment, this one recommending one of the most remarkable novels I have read in quite a while. It is Emma Donoghue's Haven, which just came out in late August of this year. If you recognize Emma Donoghue's name, it's most likely because of her 2010 best-selling novel, Room. She is an Irish-born author who has immigrated to Canada. In the novel Haven, what Donoghue does is to take us back to the year 600 in Ireland. The novel focuses upon the story of three monks who leave a rather comfortable monastery next to the River Shannon in Ireland proper, put themselves in a flimsy boat, and take to sea in search of a haven, in search of an island in which they can dedicate themselves full time to the worship of God. An island, a haven that is free from all of the distractions of the world. The three characters, the three monks, are Art, who is a famous scholar and a famous missionary, who is austere and who is rather intimidating to anyone and everyone whom he encounters. A youngster by the name of Trian. He has been a member of the mainland monastery from a very early age. He is a really likable youngster, excitable, but very dedicated to what he sees as his calling. And an older monk, although he's only been a monk about 15 years, named Cormac. Cormac had lived a pretty worldly life before joining the monastery. He joined after his family perished in plague. Art, visiting this mainland monastery, has a dream that God has picked out these other two monks, Trian and Cormac, to accompany him in search of this haven. Well, they do set out and they eventually arrive at an island that you and I today know as Skellig Michael. It's off the coast of Kerry County in Ireland. It's really quite famous and quite beautiful. And they conclude that God has sent them there and that this is where they are to serve and worship God. And so they begin to settle as best they can. But things don't work out very well. Almost certainly because of Art's personality and his understanding of what it means to be religious. There are two things to be said about Art. The first is that he is a severe ascetic. At one point in the novel, he describes himself as an exile for God and that he loves absolutely nothing here below in the world. He is hard on himself and he is hard on Trian and Cormac as well, because he thinks that what they must do is to expunge every bit of human weakness and every bit of human indulgence from themselves. He adores the island that they have discovered precisely because it is so inhospitable, so wild, so craggy and rocky. And yet there is a deep passion that runs beneath the surface in Art. He is an incredibly, I believe, sensual man. And that is given away by one passage in the novel in which he asks his two companions if they have ever even seen a grape. And he says he's tasted a grape before. And the way in which he describes it is purely sensuous. He says that it is a ball of juice that explodes in your mouth. But you can tell that he quickly backs away from that memory. He tamps down that passion, that love of the feeling and the taste of the thing of the earth which he has just described. So this deep asceticism that he practices and that he insists upon is his way of holding himself in check and keeping the passions under control. Cormac and Trian, on the other hand, are two individuals who seem to love life. They appreciate that worshiping God means worshiping God in the midst of life, not withdrawing from life as Art insists that they try to do. Both of them, for example, love music, and it broke their hearts when Art insisted that they leave their musical instruments behind them upon embarking for the Haven Island. Cormac worships God through his hands. He's a craftsman. He is a builder. He is a gardener. And whenever he is working the earth, even the thin soil of the island on which they land, or when he is building a stone beehive hut, or when he is constructing a stone altar for Art to celebrate Mass at, he feels close to God. He feels complete. He feels fulfilled. Trian, the youngster, on the other hand, is close to God when he experiences and exults in the natural beauty of the island. Art sees it as a Jacob's ladder, as he describes it, a pointy and foreboding way to climb to heaven. But Trian sees it as a kind of terrible beauty. The crags, the thin veneer of greenery that is scattered between the crags, strike him as exquisite. He looks at the ocean that surrounds the island. He looks at the horizons, and he experiences God in the beauty. And the multitude of birds, the puffins especially, that inhabit the island, strike him as being innocent creatures who in themselves are beautiful creations of God. Very soon, Art's asceticism and his insistence that everything be junketed except the worship of God, the daily prayers, the celebration of the Eucharist, lead to great trouble on the island. His rigidity, his inflexibility begins to not only wear upon Trian and Cormac's own spirituality, but also puts all three of the men in grave danger because Art will not allow his two companions to go to the mainland in order to find food or firewood, all of which they are perilously close to running out of. And by the time the novel ends, what has happened, without giving away the full plot, my friends, is that Trian and Cormac recognize that the brotherhood, the community, the koinonia, the communion, which they had been promised by Art if they would accompany him to this island, is a sham, is simply not going to happen. And when they leave, Cormac and Trian agree that they, the two of them, who have become brothers in this adventure, will create a genuine fellowship. Art, it seems to me, is the prototype of an individual who grasps at God, who grasps at himself in the process, who believes that somehow an approach to God is always a struggle and that it involves a great deal of self-flagellation and flagellation of others as well. As Trian and Cormac leave the island, Art is gratified because now he is there in the solitude of this island with God and has no human being to annoy him and irritate him. Trian and Cormac, on the other hand, exemplify a kind of open-hearted and open-handed approach to God, one that doesn't insist that God has to be grasped and grabbed, hijacked as it were, and hugged close, but that God can be found in the song of birds, in the aroma of rain on the wind, in creating with one's hands, with the beauty of the world. It's these two different types of spiritualities, these two different types of purities that Donoghue invites us to consider in the remarkable novel that she's given us. A kind of spirituality that sees purity as an escape from the world, and a kind of spirituality which sees purity as a celebration of the world. In Proto-Indian etymology, the very word haven appears to come from the word carp, which means to grasp, to grab. And I wonder if the title of this novel isn't intentionally ironic on Donoghue's part. On the one hand, we think of an island as a refuge, and this island has become anything but a refuge. But if we look at the ancient meaning of the root from which the word is derived, we can see that what this has become, this island has become, is something that exemplifies the grasping after God and the seizing of one's own humanity, because that, in a misguided way, is what art and others believe to be the route to God. One final point. I also wondered as I was reading this novel if the island itself, which again art describes as a Jacob's ladder to God, isn't Donoghue's metaphor for the church as a whole. This island which is inhospitable, this island which seems to not welcome human beings, this island which is lorded over by a man, namely art, who doesn't seem to have any milk of human kindness in him. Donoghue is an ex-Roman Catholic, and I wonder if the island doesn't stand for what she takes to be the inflexibility and the inhumanity and the inhospitality of the church which she has left. At any rate, my friends, the novel is much richer than my feeble words have been able to convey. So I earnestly invite you to take a look at it and to chew on it. It is well worth reading prayerfully and mindfully. I'm Father Kerry, and this has been another Holy Spirit Moment. If you are of a mind to subscribe to Holy Spirit Moments, I earnestly invite you to do so. All you need to do is to click on the button at the bottom of your screen. Thanks. I'll see you next time.